Hello and welcome. I'm Leslie Pine, author of Finding Joy Beyond Childlessness and a blogger. And today I'm talking to Helen Segal. Welcome, Helen.
Hi everyone, and hi Leslie.
I wanted to talk to Helen because she uses creativity to support women and men who are childless to find peace and meaning in their lives. I'm just reading that, you can probably tell. Helen's trained as a counsellor and has been a teacher of art for over 15 years. So she's used the healing arts herself. And she leads creative workshops and programs and works one-to-one with people. So, and I find creativity to heal is very close to my heart. And I wanted to talk to Helen as well because she uses art more than I have ever. And so that, it's different aspects. And so I just wanted to touch base. And so thank you very much for joining me.
It's my pleasure, Leslie. Thank you.
First question is, you've called your business Empowered Childlessness, and I was wondering about your rationale for choosing the word empowered.
I was going to show you my sketchbook, which has pages and pages and pages. I actually was brainstorming on and mind mapping on tracing papers, so it's literally layered and layered and layered. But when I look back on it, it was it was all about, as a child, I wasn't able to speak, actually. I wasn't able to speak until I was 5. Oh. And communication is just so dear to my heart. I mean, without being able to express and communicate, I mean, we're sort of blocked in, well, for me, my experience is I'm blocked inside. And there's a lot of shame around communication. There's a lot of shame around childlessness. I know when I became childless, even before I became childless, there was a shame of like, I shouldn't be seen, I shouldn't be heard, which totally triggered me back into very old childhood wounding. So for me, it is about empowering. And for me, empowering, it's not the masculine sense of, we stand there with our, hands on our hips and we try and do this Wonder Woman stance, don't we? And we're feeling empowered. When we're grieving, the last thing we want to do is stand with we want to, well, for me, I was literally feeling broken. But it's empowered in that brokenness. It's empowered in wanting to live our life, having to get up again. We've got up. If we try to be parents, as I had tried to be a parent through IVF, it was like every month I was having to get up and get up and get up. By the time that whole process had finished and that journey had finished, I was a wreck. So for me, I needed that. And understanding about boundaries, understanding about that I'm worthy, letting go of the shame, creativity and being empowered has really incorporated all of that.
Okay, that's a great answer. So, and I guess the healing arts helped you to get to that place. The question is how did you use?
Oh gosh, well, I've used the art since I was 29, and I know we're going to be speaking about the wounding around creativity, so I won't sort of go into that question quite yet. But I fell in love with the arts. It wasn't easy for me, but I had been finding a way to communicate and to express myself without words or with words. And I can still, when I'm very emotional, my words can go. But what the arts does is it's like, it's a bridge to my words. It's a bridge to communicating. And actually, I didn't need to find words. And when we're emotionally vulnerable, we're highly emotional. Actually, I know that around neurobiology, our brain, our amygdala, the back of our brain gets overwhelmed, it's triggered, it's firing off. So how can we calm that? Well, for me, the arts it just helped me, as well as meditation, as well as dance, as well as cooking, as well as gardening. But somehow the arts sort of encapsulated with image, with color, it helped me communicate.
And that was for you. It's painting, is it? Is it actual
painting, collage, drawing? It's the actual act. So it's not the end product,
sure.
which I love, right? Which a lot of trauma is around trying to get that right picture and trying to be perfect with painting. But actually, it's not. It's about turning up, even when we're feeling crappy, or even if we don't know. I'm in middle of a painting, I really don't know where this painting is going, and it's quite excruciating turning up and not knowing. But actually it's teaching me.
Interesting.
As I'm creating, I was talking to Leslie earlier about creating my website at the moment. I don't know, but how amazing to be empowered to sit in the I don't know and pick up the brush, pick up a pencil, pick up a color, and trust our intuition. And the art is
interesting, because
perfect.
So that's going deeper, isn't it? That's really letting the unconscious take over and above, the sort of conscious. Because I know, let's just go on to that. What I was I know we were going to talk about the it is the shame. You've already spoken about shame, and people have got, and I know I'm not just speaking about me, but I could speak about me, have got sort of stuff and shame around creativity. And I'm just reading in Daring Greatly, Brené Brown's book. She talks about, because one of the reasons I love her work is it's based on research, and she says that 85% of the men and women they interviewed for the shame research could recall a school incident from their childhood that was so shaming it changed how they thought of themselves as learners. And about
I'm tingling all over.
And it's and half of those were what she calls creativity scars. So they could remember a specific incidents where they were told or shown that they weren't good writers, artists, musicians, dancers, or something creative. And I think, if your art for me is probably the biggest of those, because it's so obvious, isn't it? When you're in a class at school, and I only have had one thing that went on the wall, and I never, I can't draw and paint, and that's fine. I'm okay with that now. But when you're in a group of people at school, or in a workshop maybe, that comparison gremlin comes out, and you certainly feel shame. So I know you do workshops and work with people. So I guess if I was working with you, how would I get through that? How would you help me to get through that?
Well, first of all, I talk about my own shame scarring. And I was told very early on that I wasn't creative. In fact, my dad, I remember coming up to him when I had been drawing and showing him, and he just walked away. It was devastating. So I go through that scar every time. But for me, what I've learned is the price. Now, let me get this right, because my being dyslexic, I go back to fun. The cost is not worth like holding on to the shame of that scarring. And actually these people don't get it, right? They don't, teachers, and I know I was a teacher, it's so precious. Our creativity is so precious and just needs to be nurtured and nurtured and nurtured and nurtured. And actually it's getting, I hate saying the word getting over, it's like going through it, because the benefit at the end of it is just priceless. What would I do? So there's no rules. We don't actually comment much on the final outcome, because it's not about the final outcome. It's about how do we put the brush onto the canvas or the pencil onto the paper. We first of all get in touch with those messages of I can't, needing to be perfect, I feel shame, I'm not enough. I mean, there's just a lot of these words, these beliefs. So then we tear them up.
Okay.
They're not true. We tear them up and we face them, and then gently we face that scarring. And what the paint does is actually, or the pencil, it takes you through, like, you're enough. It's a mindful meditation that we actually move from the pen, like from our bodies, from the pen, down from our bodies, down the pen and into our actual books. And we follow it. So we come out of our brains and we start trusting our creative muse, it's called, our intuition, that little part of us, we've all got it. Choose pink. It's really the inner child, right? Choose pink, go bigger, go smaller. I'm feeling crap. So we can scribble. So we're literally expressing, and what happens, the inner child starts trusting and gets to say what it needs to say, what she needs to say. See, she corrected me already. She's like, what she needs to say. And the more we allow and we practice, we keep turning up, the more we realize. So you'll hear people from my workshops going, I didn't think I was creative, but I did Helen's workshop, and actually I'm creative. It's because they can see that what's in front of them, they're not judging it, because it's communicating from them. So it's not a painting that we put on the wall, and I have painting on the wall, but it's a part of us that is communicating to us, and that's so precious. The collages tell us something, marks tell us something, and then we're not bothered about whether we're creative or not. All we're doing is expressing ourselves. That,
as you say, it's that inner child, or that unconscious, the not knowing.
It is so powerful, Leslie. It's
I can see that.
And you can't. Sometimes I don't even have words for it. It's just something. It's a part of the human psyche, or it's a part of the human nature that, Brené Brown talks about. I mean, it's a scarring, and it's like that needs to be healed. And then we can start healing ourselves.
I guess it's going back to that inner child, as you said, the inner child who was there before the scar, isn't it? That, the 3-year-old, 5-year-old who danced and sang and didn't care what people think. And, there's layers and layers and layers of armour on top of that. So it's I'm going to say, is it a quicker way to get through that? But perhaps it is.
I tell you what, if
anyway.
I think in a safe place, and I think, I just was on my Facebook earlier, and one of my participants said, my safe place was your workshop, Helen. I almost shed a tear, because what a beautiful thing for someone to say, and to, I feel really honoured to be able to hold that space. Because it's not easy. Shame isn't easy to go through, but actually it's, and I know that you know this, I'm not the boundaries, like we can have walled boundaries, right? So we have walled boundaries around our creativity, and then, or we have no boundaries, and we're just showing everyone and taking on everyone's judgment and criticism, and then we get overwhelmed. And actually we need healthy boundaries around us, of being able to connect to the playful, expressive, whether we call it the inner child or the creative muse. It's the part of us that we were innately born with and have a right to. And whether, Julia Cameron talks about left and right brain, but it's about balance.
Yes, yeah. It's
So,
interesting, isn't it? Because a few years ago now, I was having a conversation with a friend, and just because of this not being able to paint or draw, I said to her I wasn't creative, and she was like, "Well, that's just absolutely ridiculous." Because at the time I was writing my book, I'm a reasonable photographer. I can cook, and I was just like, "Well, yes, you can't draw or paint, anything that would go up on the wall, and I'm fine with that." But I am creative in other ways. And recently I've been doing a lot of embroidery, and I've been sharing it a bit more on social media, and it's not perfect. And when I look at, I look at stuff, you can look on Instagram and you can see all this fancy stuff, and it's nowhere near as good as those, but I don't actually care. I can see what I'm doing is getting better, and I make it, and I like to make things to give to people, and that for me is helps them. It's nice for them, but it also helps me tremendously. It's that different part of healing that I'm doing it in a different way for me.
And it's about creating something, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I went to university as a textile designer, so I did embroidery. In fact, that was the very first at university that caught me. It wasn't about painting. In fact, I was told in my painting class I wanted to do an hourglass figure, and the teacher just went, "You can't do that. That's crap." Oh, I went crazy. How dare this man say? So I really went in for him, but it's tough. But my love, my textiles was always part of the family. The women knitted, and we were knitters and manufacturers, actually, food knitting. But there's something about creating for women that is really important in our lives. But I think what I'm hearing and my perception, my opinion, it's like the healing arts is very different from that type of right, wrong, improving. It's the healing arts is about communicating and listening in that process mind. But also, isn't it beautiful, like when we're stitching, when I'm knitting, there's something part of our brain, that repetition of calm. I was out gardening today, reading. There's something about, I'm not even thinking, I'm just being in the present.
Exactly.
How
exactly.
beautiful that is. And mindful painting, mindful drawing it can be the same. So it can be cooking, it can be embroidery, it can be knitting, it can be making cards, it can be my cosmic smashbooking. I think there's a difference from processing to calming the amygdala and enjoyment, right? Enjoyment of the arts. So,
and I read, and I'm sure it's Brené Brown again. She said that healing goes from the head to the heart by the hands, and I can't. That's in my head, and I've remembered it for several years, but I can't find where she said it. But it makes sense, doesn't it? So that doing something with your hands. And writing, of course, is journaling is another way. It's like a different way, but yes, making things, as you say. Now, I wonder. Maybe that's for another conversation. Making something when you can't make a child. I wonder about that. But anyway,
it's so important. I think for me, it's empowered childlessness. For me, we're talking about meaning here. It's about creating. It's creating something, and I know as soon as I was able. I always think when I think a trigger word, my head, there's a trigger word that's just gone through my head, birthing, right? Birthing. This is, I gave birth to empowered childlessness. I gave birth to grieve with love and kindness. I gave birth to grieve with gusto at Jodie Day's Reignite weekend. It was something that incorporated, it was a love. It was something that was really important. And there's so many quotes out there.
I know.
I have one right now. That meaning is so important. And I think when I wasn't able to manifest after I lost my possibility of being a mom, that was hard.
Yes.
that was, I mean, it was hard. It was as hard of letting go as letting go. It was like the end part that I needed to go through. And I really believed that, and people might think I'm wrong, but I believe, for me, my experience is I needed to find something that I created myself.
Yeah, I think that's right. Actually, I agree with you. I mean, I created my book. That's my book. That's my legacy as well. And but you know, now that I can't kind of stop embroidering, and you know, and different things. You know, last week I was doing something which was a bit more advanced. Yesterday, I felt really peaceful and chilled, and I just did something fairly simple. But it really, you know, while I was watching TV, and it just really helped to embed or integrate whatever I was doing. So, yeah, we're big fans of creativity.
I remember back here a few years ago when it wasn't World Child. They had the workshops here in the Midlands, and there was some of my artwork went up, machine embroidery went up. There's something around us childless women creating that I just think it's so important. And my little insides quiver when I hear women and men and kids, you know, as teachers say I'm not creative, because it's like, actually we're innately as children, you know, I mean, as we popped out and we're creative. What does creative mean? It means that see, these are triggers, right? So I'm just being very aware that we have to walk, right? We fall over. I'm learning to play tennis. You're learning to play embroider, and it's like it's about learning. And Brené Brown's got it spot on. When we stop learning, there's something that how do we grow?
Exactly.
It's a crime, and teachers have a lot to answer for.
Exactly. And I know I said we'd keep this to around sort of, you know, I don't want to go into too long, but I think we could chat all day. But I was just going to ask one question, and I know I didn't tell you about this before, but is there one thing that you could say to our, you know, those of us watching that, you know, and hopefully we'll put your details and they'll sign up to your workshops. But if in the meantime, or if not, then is there one sort of creative thing that you could suggest people do to help them?
Yes, I think one thing, put the most simplest, put your pen on the page and let it move.
Okay.
So people might call that doodling, but let it move.
Okay.
And there's a free actual gift that I have on my front page. So I can give that to your people, Leslie, and you can listen to that. And that's basically what I'm talking about, which is just put your pen and let it move and breathe.
And breathe. Oh, that sounds exciting. Look forward to it.
And breathe.
And breathe. That's always important. Yeah, I think we could probably sit here all day, but as we don't want to leave our listeners with too big a task. So I'll just say, really, thanks very much. That was really interesting, and I'm really pleased to have talked to you. So and for those of us, we'll put your Helen's details underneath or at the end or somewhere very close so that you can get hold of her. And thanks very much.
Thank you. And just sorry, Leslie, and I know that this is going out through before World Childless Week, isn't it?
Yeah.
And come and join me on the World Childless Week. So there's a free workshop, and I'm there too. So Leslie, come and join me.
I will try and do that. Okay. Okay. Bye.
Bye.